Today, we are going to talk about John Kabong. John Kabong is one of the two people who plotted for my sacking. If he did not do, what he did on that day in Nakuru, probably I'd have retired honorably the way he has retired honorably. By now, I'd be home, retired with first of all those years, no pay, pension, and so on and so forth. He put me into these problems for a very stupid reason. They were two. The other one was Faris Moriasi. As we speak now, Faris Moriasi died a long time ago. If these two people would not have sat down and plotted against me, I would have retired honorably, just like he has retired. Why did I decide to talk about him today? I was giving advice to some young Kenyans, and it had something to do with court cases. There is a court case that had been decided, and then I told the young people that when a court has decided, usually you are given 2 weeks to appeal. And when the 2 weeks are over, you cannot appeal unless you go to court and seek for permission to appeal out of time. And when you appeal out of time, you have to appeal with very good reasons. So I remember, as I was giving them advice, I then remembered something. When I was sacked from the police, I was given 7 days to appeal. And then I wrote my appeal. Personally, I never involved anybody. I never consulted anybody. I just did it on my own. Wrote the appeal. The appeal was taken, and the only changes that were made was that my then boss, DK Rono, looked at it, and he noticed some typing error, spacing error, and so on, because I'm the one who typed it. And he showed those things and told me that there are mistakes here and there. And he asked me if I was comfortable with sending my appeal the way it was, or if I wanted to have it properly typed. I said, if I get a good person to type for me, I would be grateful. Then he told his secretary, who was called Grace Kaikai. Is it Kaikai or Koikai? A Maasai lady, to type it. She typed it very well. In her typing, she never placed a date there. I later came to discover, but by law, that was something very little, because the covering letter, my letter of appeal, had no date. The one I had personally typed had a date, but the one which was now typed the second time, it had no date. And I can tell you, even today, very many days after, that it was a human error. Koikai never meant to exclude the typing day. And in law, and in any whatever, there is the covering letter. The covering letter forwarded here with please find the appeal for. So it will be assumed that the day that the covering letter is written is that the day I typed, which was within time. We spent some time. I had been sacked, but I had not left Nakuru. So one time, John Kabong called me to his office. When he called me to his office, uh, we talked a lot, and he was praising me. Imagine somebody who had made you be sacked, you are talking with him. The only thing I had sworn that I would never take by then I used to take alcohol. I would never take alcohol in his presence again, for reasons that you'll know here under. So we went to his office, tea was brought and things to do. And he said how bright I was, how my appeal, people have been talking on how I had covered several points and whatever. And it was a very genuine appeal. But he wanted to make some recommendations. He said, first of all, you excluded the fact that you are employed with good eyes, but you worked for 8 continuous years in hardship areas that even cost you your eyes. You put on glasses because of staying for a long time in hot areas. So you should have included that. You should have included how you fought Gorokos, how you fought shifters, and so on and so forth. So that the government should have mercy on you and reverse the sacking on top of what you have written. So he told me people are discussing and were saying that way you are. And then I didn't see through. Sometimes when you are good-hearted, there is always the angel of the Lord around you. I didn't even think about it or whatever. I just remembered whatever I said. And even my book today, I like everything to be written the way I've written. The only thing is the correction should be typing. Another correction should be, people say I keep on repeating myself so much and whatever. So editing to avoid such repetition or something, and for clarity and whatever. But removing my ideas or even adding in more ideas, I have never been for that idea. So for that reason alone, I declined that. But I knew 2 years after that, it came to my notice that he had been sent. Actually, it is his idea that he had offered to the bosses, and they told him it is hard to convince me, and he had offered to personally come and talk to me. The trick here was that I accept the new ideas and write a new appeal, and then the new appeal I would be told to write that I've discarded the old appeal and I was standing by the new appeal. If I would have accepted, you see, I would have declared the old appeal null and void, and I would have said that I stand by the new appeal. Then I would be told that you have appealed out of time. You have been disqualified. Now, when I was advising these young Kenyans about appealing out of time, that is when I remembered John Kabong. I then Googled and saw his picture. And if you Google it, you'll find that some few years back, it is written that the county government of Kisumu wants to evict John Kabong. In the Google, they call him a goon. They want to evict him. It seems he had grabbed. Seemed that he had grabbed an office in 9th floor belonging to the county government of Kisumu. And so they were writing that the goon, John Kabong, there's a plan to evict him, and they were calling him goon. In as much as I thank them for calling him goon, I'd also believe that I think they didn't find a stronger word to call him, because even calling him a goon is an underestimation. This fellow when the right time comes, he should burn in hell the way his friend Faris Moriasi is burning in hell. Faris Moriasi died later. Now, I'd rather start talking about John Kabong, starting from the day I first met him. John Kabong, I was transferred from Mandera to Eldama Ravine. But in Eldama Ravine, there was an unwritten law that people who took alcohol, even a glass, were not allowed to be workers in Eldama Ravine. And I was known to be somebody who used to take alcohol 25 hours a day. So when I was in Nakuru, there were plans to transfer me elsewhere. That is where I ended up in Chepkoilel, which today is called University of Eldoret. Now, as I was there, John Kabong came with a Land Rover. He came with a Land Rover, and he had been transferred from, what do you call this place? Narok. There is that Mau Narok. Yeah, he had been transferred out of Mau Narok to Eldoret. Mau Narok was a sub-district. We had some sub-districts like Naivasha, like Thika, where even the DO would form a sub-district, something like that. And so the intelligence officer, inspector who was at Mount Narok, had a Land Rover. So his Land Rover was taking him. He had been transferred from Mount Narok to Eldoret. So Eldoret was getting two inspectors, one from Mandera and one from Narok, Mount Narok. So I was told to enter board that Land Rover from Nakuru to Eldoret. That distance, Kabong spent the whole 2.5 hours to 3 hours mourning, cursing, and whatever. He told me that he was not on good talking terms with his district officer of Mount Narok. The reason being that he had those areas. I understand they plant a lot of wheat. Is it wheat and barley and something like that? He said that for several years or several harvest periods, he had rented farms, and he was getting lots of money. This thing appears to have annoyed the DO, whom I think the DO was Somali or something, who was unhappy about it, and the DO had undermined him, and the DO had necessitated his transfer from Mount Narok to Eldoret. He spent all that time lamenting, crying. He was even saying that he would go home during his leave and see some juju men to curse that DO. So we went to Eldoret. That is the first time I met him there. While we were in Eldoret, there came out to be several inspectors, and we used to differ among ourselves. We used to differ among ourselves because we had 3 types of inspectors in Eldoret, and we had 3 types of inspectors in the Kenya Police Service. We had graduates who joined the police as cadet inspectors. We had Form 6s who had attended a special course for inspectors. And we had normal inspectors who had gone to CID training school for 6 weeks. Now, especially inspectors who were graduates and had spent 6 months in Kiganjo were wondering how they could be considered to be of the same level with the inspectors who had gone to CID training school for 6 weeks. So there used to be that quarrel among the 3 types of inspectors. What we did not know is everything we talked, Kabong would secretly go and see the deputy district security intelligence officer and inform him. So we could stay with him and whatever, and he used to spy on us and tell that person. And yes, I left Eldoret ahead of him. I left Eldoret ahead of him. Yeah, the deputy district security intelligence was called Elijah Oda. So we could talk, we could whatever, leave alone the difference, the triangle difference between the inspectorate. We ulienda seminar unavaa masuti huko na sisi huko tulikuwa nakimbia Mgogodo. Mgogodo is a desert in Laikipia where we used to have a lot of, and if you walk, if you are not careful in Mgogodo, you could step down on a mine and kill yourself. So you are saying, as we were doing that in Mgogodo, there is somebody who was spending 6 weeks in CID training school attending a seminar. So he's not but as we were talking these things and even other office rumors, he used to pass it to our boss, our deputy boss, Mr. Elijah Oda. Fast forward, we went to Nakuru. I went to Nakuru ahead of him. When I went to Nakuru ahead of him, I was one time I wrote, I'm half a Kikuyu. My father was a Bukusu, and my mother was from Madera, not very far from Kinarigiji. That is why I refer to Rigiji as Mufiala. So there was this problem concerning Molo clashes. Actually, Molo clashes is also contributed to my being sacked. While we were talking about Molo clashes, I mean, we could talk about Molo clashes and nobody was ready to put it on pen and paper. So I told my bosses about Molo clashes, but I was very clever because the deputy provincial boss was a personal friend to Lando, my father. So one day I went and told him, told me, why can't you write a detailed report? He was a Kalenjin. In those days, if you are non-Kalenjin, talking sensitive things about Moi government was a bit of a challenge. So I went and talked to him, and he told me that then he rang Nyati House. He rang the Nairobi office, Nyati House, informed them, and then they told him to have that thing on paper and pen. Then he came back to me, said, can you put it on paper and pen? I went back to members of the inspectorate, told them, can we make an amalgamated report? I can assure you that that amalgamated report, I contributed the list. But when it came to signing, an amalgamated report is written, then it is written that it was compiled by the following people. 1, 2, 3. If you are 20, all the 20 names are there. But people said, wewe na kierere yako, you land yourself into problems. So, as I said, I contributed the list in form of ideas or anything. But since everybody didn't want his name to appear there, they drafted it so well and only wrote my name. It was a very well thought report. It was forwarded to Nyati, and Nyati, the national NIS headquarters then, reported back and said, huyo jamaa watu wanasemaga tu ni mlevi, kumbe is such a great thinker. Well, I may be a great thinker, yes, but that report, as I said, was an amalgamated, and I contributed the list. But since nobody wanted his signature to be placed there, it is only my signature which was there. Then one day when we were having a morning brief, the then deputy, he was called Rafael Kaino. He came and said, kijana rafiki yangu, hiyo report imefika Nyati House na utapata chief inspector. That thing annoyed a lot of people. I remember the late Ademba complained. That I was going to be on his same rank when he got that rank when I was in primary school. and who knows, maybe later I'll be his boss. So many people complained, uh, but they looked at it from a different angle. They said, and the reason why they looked at it at a different angle is the way Kimayo had said. He said, Kimayo said that mtoto ya rafiki yangu, yeah, he said mtoto ya rafiki yangu naenda kukupromote. So a lot of things were done on me. A lot of things were done, and I would jump over those traps. I remember there was even a time when a bunch of keys were lost. I looked for it for several hours, went to Mr. Kimayo, reported myself that I've lost the keys. And then later, after people knew that I've reported to Kimayo, then they brought me the keys. The intention was for me to be found to be mishandling the keys to sensitive places. And they felt that now that I'd reported myself and I've been forgiven, then the keys were found their own ways. Fast forward, election time came. I remember that very day, Raila and most of the Ford Kenya luminaries were supposed to come to a meeting somewhere in the Nakuru West. I was on duty, but instructions had been that every day an inspector should be in the office. So we used to have two inspectors at the same time. One would work during daytime, another one would work during night time, just like a duty officer in a police station. That is how it reached. And that day, for you to be in the office at 6, it means that you have to wake up at 4. And for you to leave the office at 6, it means that you'll be in your house at 8. Now, from 4 a.m. to 8 p.m., you have not left the office, you have not taken tea, you have not taken anything, you have not taken anything. You have not eaten anything, you have not, apart from the waters from the office tap. That is how many hours? That is over 14 hours. So, another inspector whom I can't remember took over from me at 6. And as I went, I was tired, hungry, and whatever. I went to the police canteen. Now, going to the police canteen at a place called Kasarani Police Quarters in Nakuru, I went and ordered some meat, which I wanted to have with ugali. And I wanted to have some meat with ugali. And as they were preparing, I took a beer. Punde si punde. Someone says, kama punde si punde, basi punde ni nani? Punde si punde, Kabong and Moriase came. Kabong and Moriase came and found me at the counter, taking my beer. You see, when you take beer on an empty stomach, you get drunk quickly, isn't it? But when they came, Moriasi took out a bottle of whiskey. This whiskey that they call half a bottle, chupa nusu, kept it on the counter. And then Kabong opened the whiskey and poured into my beer. I saw that. I saw Moriasi taking out from his coat, and I saw Kabong doing that. But I did not resist. Why? If you have ever seen any drunkard who refuses extra, in fact, the drunkards wanaomba pombe. Maybe nowadays, but the days I used to take alcohol, a drunk would seek for alcohol from you. And a drunk would seek for alcohol from you. But if you give him free without him even asking, he'd be grateful. And as I took it, the alcohol took effect immediately. Now, if you take a Pilsner and you mix it with whiskey and gulp it in one chance, you get drunk very early. That is when Kabong now not Kabong, the late Moriasi started saying uh, the late Moriasi started saying that we have studied you. Your mother is a Kikuyu. You are sympathetic to Kikuyuism, and that is why you are against the government's move. You are against the government's move to on issues of Molo clashes. You remember we had Molo clashes in 1992. And I said, whatever. First of all, I tried to justify that and say, but this is something that was being discussed in the inspector's room. In the inspector's room, and I had even gone to an extent of talking to all of us, and we had agreed to, but nobody wanted his signature to be. So it is not even my personal idea, but it is a collective idea. And I said, no, 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 no. We have studied you. In fact, we know that you are sympathetic to uh, Mwai Kibaki and you are anti-Moi and whatever, whatever. So first of all, I was reluctant to say that. If you go and see the proceedings in my file, evidence is there. I had witnesses accept that uh, Moriasi, Moriasi himself, even Kabong, and all those who were around agreed that Moriasi persisted with politics for quite some time before I started. And it is there even today. I even kept asking each and every witness, suppose Moriasi would not have talked politics, would I ever have uttered politics? Everybody says it is a high possibility that you could not utter politics. So after he talked, then that is when the ideas came. And you see, I was drunk on an empty stomach, just a beer, but beer mixed with whiskey. And this is something that they had pre-planned. Uh, my piece of meat and ugali, I have to go back to Kasarani to demand it many years later. But of course, it was forgotten. And then from there, I told them, look here, let us be very sincere. I started criticizing Moi about his paranoia, about his being surrounded with illiterate old people, about Kibaki. And I said, everybody, if you look at that file, at that proceedings, you'll find that I said that Kenya, if you make a mistake, I use the word if you make a mistake, you make a mistake and elect Kibaki, you'll be shocked with the development that will suddenly rise up in Kenya. I'm grateful that I can proudly say that my prediction became true. So as we were talking that way, there was a near fist fight. Uh, we nearly fought. Actually, it is people who came and separated us. But what I know is that the condition I was in, I was not in a condition to fight. I was hungry. I was tired, and I was very drunk. But people came in, stopped us, uh, and then as we were still talking, somebody tapped me from behind, and when I looked back, it was the provincial boss who was standing there. Said, Kwatege, I don't believe you can say that. I was tired, drunk, and hungry, and I told him, wait. In February next year, somebody will. I didn't mention who that person is, but I said in February next year, somebody will be payslipless. Well, of course, February came, and I am the one who was payslipless. That time, I was arrested, taken to the cells, and placed there. Placing there, uh, the Kabong came to the cell to see me twice. I don't know why he did that. And then 3 times some people came, all of them from Kalenjin tribe. I don't want to say that all of them from one tribe. I have to say all of them were from Kalenjin. And on the 3 occasions, I was being given blank. I was being given blank disciplinary proceeding papers to sign, meaning that they would later go and uh, type whatever they typed. What they did not know is that I attended my special inspector's course in Kiganjo, and something that is called force standing orders, which today is called service standing orders, is something that in Kiganjo, when you are training to be an inspector, you cram that thing. You cram that thing, force standing orders, the way a Catholic crams Hail Mary. So I knew everything and I knew whatever. And later on, when I became public, I said, let them produce those papers that they were saying that had been charged ABCD and whatever. Because we have something that we were calling annual appraisal form. Annual appraisal reforms had always been put in my file, indicating that I had no disciplinary convictions. Then that following day, I was placed in proceedings, which was presided over by Superintendent Kobunga, Gerard Kobunga. I don't know about his Christian name, but he was called Kobunga. Then we started that. The first injustice that was done to me is that according to police regulations, you are supposed to have a member of the inspectorate above your rank, a member of inspectorate and above, and who is senior to you in rank, to defend you like a lawyer. I looked for somebody who was called Benson. I think he was called Benson Momanyi. He was a prosecutor. I wanted him to assist me in the as a defense lawyer, but they refused. They just refused and said we continue, and I placed it there and said so. We continued with that, and as I've said, today they are called service standing orders, but those days it used to be called force standing orders. Force standing orders, I knew it off head, and we would continue with the proceedings. And Mr. Kabong, not Mr. Kabong, Mr. Kobunga, Mr. Kobunga would know that the way the proceedings are being recorded, things would go haywire. So he would postpone that to go and seek, further instructions from above. But on my side, since they had refused to include, Chief Inspector Benson Momanyi, whenever they would postpone, I would also have my session with him. He was a prosecutor. We would have a session with him on how to plan. So instead of the postponement going against me, it was also giving me time to rejuvenate as I talked to Chief Inspector Benson Momanyi. We continued that way. There is something that was talked on that night, which I did not say, but which I made reference during uh, my disciplinary proceedings. Faris Moriasi, you know, since I was young, anytime I can remember, I have always been thin. And even when I was in my upper primary, we were staying in Madaraka. People used to call me Mosquito because I was very thin. It is, if you look at my videos, you'll see that if you compare them last nyinyi mumefanya mpaka nimeput on weight, but since photography started, all my pictures since I was a very young child, I've been very thin, very very thin. So as we were having the, 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 the disciplinary proceedings, I I made a reference to what Moriasi had told me. You know, Moriasi took the fact that I was thin and he told me that I told him, but you wanted to fight me. Are you not the one who challenged? He said, no. Uh, no, when we were when we wanted to fight, it is me who wanted the fight to go on. Otherwise, I could not fight. But when people are holding him, he was saying that Faris Moriasi was saying that he cannot fight somebody who is very thin and very soon would die of HIV/AIDS. That is what he said. And even during the proceedings, I said that, and it was placed there. And you see, with all due respect to anybody who may be going through the challenges of HIV/AIDS, but I have to say this, that Farid Moriasi later died. He later contracted HIV/AIDS and died. And you know, this is how he contracted. I've even talked about it without including his name in a past recording. There was a boss in intelligence who had interfered with the insurance. There was a special insurance policy on intelligence officers who are HIV/AIDS. And in that way, by then, ARVs used to be very, very expensive. ARVs used to be very, very expensive. But the NIS had taken a special insurance policy on its personnel. And then the boss who came, there was the first person had taken insurance. And then when the new boss came, he took another company's insurance. And the other, you know, he went to that company and said he wanted his something small because he was the director of administration. He wanted to be given something because he deals with the insurance cover. The people said no. The former director of administration had already picked. So he looked for another insurance company and stopped that insurance company from further and changed to the new one. Now the insurance company refunded 90% of the money they had been given. They refunded the 90% because they said the 10% they had given to the former director of administration. And then Mr. That fellow, I'm forgetting his name, but I'll say it before I'll say it in the comment section. He was given another check by that insurance company and gave it to a second insurance company, so that the company that had insured 100% refunded 90%, and he took 90% to a second company where he was given 9%. So whatever the government had given out, 81% reached 81% reached the insurance company, and the cover was less. So a lot of intelligence officers died of AIDS, and Faris Moriasi was one of them. That is poetic justice, where he said that uh, he cannot fight somebody who is going to die of AIDS. I'm still alive. In fact, viewers have made sure that I'm putting on weight, and him, he's 6 feet under. And then that is what happened. And later on, as I was sacked and I had appealed to the Commissioner of Police, I was sacked and I had appealed to the Commissioner of Police because I was sacked by somebody who had no power to sack somebody of my level. That in law they call it ultra vires. As I was waiting for the response, that is when Kabong now tried to convince me to write another appeal so that it does happen that way. Later on, because my property, I had a house full of furniture in E10. So when I was sacked, I was requesting there was something I was arguing with the office, that when I was transferred from E10 to Nakuru, I was supposed to be given a lorry to carry my things from E10 to Nakuru. But now that I've been sacked, instead of the lorry taking my things from E10 to Nakuru, why can't it take from E10 to my home area, which in kilometers is less than Nakuru? Because E10 you have to reach in Eldoret and then go 150 kilometers, 157 kilometers to Nakuru. But from Eldoret to my place, I think that is 60 kilometers. So we would have saved around 90 kilometers. But I was told that anybody who has been sacked, he does not have the privilege of his properties being, he does not have the privilege of his properties being taken home. There is a Samburu inspector with John Kabong. They took all my property. Yeah. I remember the OCS. I went to report to E10 police station that my things are being snatched. And the OCS was called Mr. Masika. I remember it was Mr. Masika. Those who were in E10 in 1992 can remember. Uh, when Mr. Masika, I went to the police station to report that my theft of my things. And Kabong and the other Samburu inspector, whom I've forgotten his name, he was very old. I think he must have retired in around 1995. I went and reported theft of my property, and Kabong went and told that OCS that si unaona huyu mtu wa kwenyu si ameenda nyumbani just wacha hiyo kitu iandikwe kwa OB. Ikiandikwa kwa OB, you are also going home. The OCS was called me and talked to me in vernacular, told me, young man, vindu vichangana vicha. Things come and go. One time you'll get even better furnitures than those things. Furnitures that I had, coming from Northeastern, those furniture I had bought through Chekhov system. They were just taken, Kabong just took them, and they walishare na huyo Masai, huyo Samburu, and it became that way. When Kibaki became the president, I pushed for my reinstatement and so on and so forth. And I was told by the intelligence officers at Nyati House that I should not have even gone to the press first. I would have slowly gone to Nyati House and they would have known how to reinstate me. But I told them, how would I have known? They said, now that you have gone public and the intelligence is an organization that that doesn't need to be publicly whatever, so I think you have spoiled it. So in the case, when I used to go and visit them that way to try and see if I can be reinstated, I met a lot of intelligence officers who said that John Kabong has used all his career development in undermining other people. You talk when he's there, he sneaks out and tells the bosses what you people are talking and whatever. They were just telling me haja change, hajakuwa namna hiyo. And that is when Kibaki had taken over. Things went on that way. I never heard of him. From that when Kibaki took over. It is only, as I've said early today, I was advising people on the issue. I was telling them the issue of appealing out of time, appealing when your time is. Then I remembered John Kabong, and when I Googled, I saw his picture today, just today. I saw his picture, and it is written that the retired goon, John Kabong, I think that thing was 2 or 3 years ago. The retired goon John Kabong is being evicted from the 9th floor of his of a house that belongs to Kisumu County government. Now, especially my viewers who are in Kisumu, you know the building, and he chose a 9th floor to grab from the county government of Anyang'nyong. Now you can see a person of that nature going to grab such a building, and whoever uploaded that story and even placed here his picture called him the retired goon. My brother John Kabong, I am where you took me with our brother the late Moriasi, Faris Moriasi. Endelea hivyo tu. God is there. You can see you did what you did to me. You can see Kisumu people are calling you retired, 62-year-old retired goon. Now for you to be a senior special branch officer, and you end up being called a goon. You go to where I come from, two places. By the way, I'm more known in Karatina than what I'm known in Webuye. But if I go to Webuye, that is the last thing anybody can call me. A goon. Hell is waiting for you to be the chief prefect of goons the day you will die.